No, I can't believe it. Can you repeat what you just said?
Well, I've never heard about Odoo.
You never heard about Odoo. That's amazing. Like, it's the most well-known hosting platform of Odoo.
Odoo?
Odoo, yeah, just type Odoo on the internet, and yes, you get it here, Odoo. I swear, just try it. And
Okay, Odoo.sh.
Odoo, yeah, that's the same. Okay, so all right, let's start, yes, with the Odoo Insider session. So hello everyone and welcome to this new session. Here, a regular Q&A session where you will have the chance to ask any functional, technical, or questions that you may have, let's say, around Odoo. As a reminder, you have access to the recording and the list of all the previous sessions that last for more than a year now, and with all the recording of the past session. If you want to get back to some previous content, you are free to do so. Also, maybe just before diving into your questions, just a small, let's say, status about the agenda of the Odoo Insider sessions. Next week, this will again be a regular Q&A session as today. But just for you to know, when you will arrive at the end of July, you will get a very special session about electronic invoicing with our accounting director, Winand, who is going to give this session. So it will be about electronic invoicing, which is a very crucial topic, especially in Europe for now, as you may know, because, for example, in Belgium, this is going to become mandatory for each company to do the electronic invoicing, let's say, for their company. And yes, but it will be also a chance for you to ask any accounting questions about the app to the most specialist one here in Odoo about that topic. All right. Yes, maybe before starting, and maybe to give you the chance to maybe prepare your questions before let's say we start. I would like let's say to maybe show you something about let's say some features that are maybe not so well known about Odoo, and especially in that case, what we call the quote calculator. So maybe here I'm just going to yes, share my screen and yes, show you what it looks like. So for those who don't know about it, now when you create a quote from Odoo 18, you have the chance to select, of course, your customers, but also a quotation template. And you can link to it a quote calculator. For example, that's the case for the demo data for the quotation template office furnitures. If I select this one here, I will get the chance to dive into a quote calculator, which is basically a spreadsheet in Odoo, make some, let's say, calculations about the total costs it would represent here in that case to ship and assemble, yes, some furniture. But something that is maybe not so well known about that tool is the fact that, let's say, as data that you can update with this tool. For now, what happens is that if I take a look at my quote calculator, I will see that I will be able to update the two lines of my order, which are the furniture assembly and the local delivery, especially here about the unit price. So for now, you see by default, I have a 2,000 euros for the furniture assembly and 10, let's say, for the local delivery. But if I'm going to adapt a bit here, let's say how I'm going to manage my delivery, let's imagine, okay, I just give the distance, I give maybe some extra hours that needs to be spent on the task. Then I end up with some new costs here for the transport and for the order total assembly that I can save into my sales order to update the price. Well, what I want to show you is not really that part. What I want to show you is mostly about what you can do more than this. And for example, here, if I come back to my quote calculator and I click again on my field where, let's say, some synchronization has been done. Actually, this is not this one. It's the one here that we get in that template. And I will see that the fields that I can actually modify are here inside of this list. And it could be like fields like the price or the quantity, for example. But it could also be, and that's maybe here something that I want to try with you, the description of my product. Let's imagine that we want to add in the description of my product here, maybe, so for the furniture assembly, maybe, I don't know, like, or maybe for the transport cost, I want to add the name of the vehicle, which is used, you know, for my, my transport cost. What I could try here then, because actually it is already written here, I could just get back to my truck. I could decide, you know, to synchronize that field now, here, with the description of my line, and for which line it will be for, I think, the 6th line of my order, like this one. I'm going to check. So here, if I just check, yes, if this one here, yes, this is indeed the 6th one here for the price, and there for the description then. That's it. Now I did it. I can save again and see what happens. Yes, and you see now that the description then has been added automatically to my line for the medium van, which has been used, for my local delivery. What it means then is that it becomes, let's say, quite interesting, because you can, in the quote calculator, both decide to adapt the quantity, the price, as well as, let's say, the description of the product that are added to the lines, which can probably, answer some use case in standard, without having to develop, especially about it for your, on your PDF, for example. So yeah, that could be a way to do it. All right, now let's try to take a look at your questions. So yes, if I have a question here already from Savio on LinkedIn, Odoo's save button is playing expert level hide and seek. I almost needed a treasure map to find it for the love of UX. And what's left on of my insanity, please give it an icon that actually says I'm a save button. Also, I entered the Odoo Business Cookie. Yes. Yes, cookie conference. Fully. The screen is good. Yeah. The screen is a bit, let's say, turning off at the bottom, like it's turning off and getting back. So yeah. Full review loading. Stay tuned. Okay. So about the UX and the save button, indeed that's a bit surprising indeed when you are not used to it, when you compare it maybe to previous version of Odoo. But that's true that in order to save a record now, the way to do it is to, if you want to manually do it, let's say, is to click on the save button here, which is a small cloud, here indeed to save your quotation. But the reason why they did it is that now actually you don't need to manually save anymore when you are going to play here with the interface. So if I'm just going to leave here my quote and come back, actually it has been created, exactly at the moment I left it. So the idea now is that the manually button, the button to manually save an order is not needed anymore. So indeed, as it becomes less needed for the user, we wanted to make it smaller and to make it not mandatory to be used. But it's true that it could be a bit surprising if you, let's say, worked with some consultants or partners who use Odoo for a very long time. I guess they will always get used, to the idea of saving every time they do something. That's something that I do as well, and I think it's not the best practice, about using the interface of Odoo. But yes, that's something that we are, let's say, willing to do whatever happens. But I think it's just a question of getting used to it, and once you know it, and it's true that from time to time it could be useful just to save a record, maybe to trigger an action or something that's going to adapt the record as well on your interface. All right, so yes, so as I said, don't hesitate to ask any questions in the chatter, so we are here for that. It could be about any topics, as I said, so if you just struggle currently with a project and you want us to discuss it together, just, feel free to add your question in the chat and, to discuss it together. If, let's say, to give you the time again to prepare your questions that we can still move on, what happens is that I can still take a look. Okay, we have a new questions here in the chatter. So from Hendrik, very good. So yes, as I said, don't hesitate to do it. So Hendrik will ask, how can pricing rules be applied to products that are part of a kit? It seems that I can currently apply pricing rules on products that are on a sales order line. When I construct a kit through, I would expect that the pricing rules will also be applied to the products that are in the bill of material of the kit product. Good use case. Okay, so let's try to reproduce it first and then try to see if there is a way, to make it work. So for that, I'm just simply going first to create a new product. Let's imagine first my component. So let's imagine component 1. Let's give it a sales price of 15, for example. And component 2. And give it a price here of 20. Like this, and imagine indeed that we have now a new product, which is a kit of my components, which will be a bill of material here, containing my two components, 1 and 2, like this. And indeed, I'm just going to state that this is a kit, and so it should be, yes, delivered as so. So, all right, indeed, here what happens is that I have a sales price of my component here, which I need to manually set up. What you see is that you can compute the price from the BOM here, but especially about the cost of your kit, but not for the sales price. But here, let's imagine, okay, we just decide to sell it at 50 euros, or maybe let's try to make it a bit more consistent. What I did is that I put it some price on my components. So this one is 15 and this one is 20. So let's make my kit as 35 to make it consistent. For now, indeed, it's going to work. So that indeed now, if I decide to sell my kit of components, of course, it will be at 35, which is the sum of the sales price of my two components. But indeed, if I at the same time decide to create a price list, here, which would be, let's say, a premium customer, on which I'm going to target my component 1 and apply maybe a certain discount of 5%, and do the same for my component 2. Maybe here, I don't know, like about 10%. What happens is that the logic of the price list is so that the fact that on my in my sales order line, indeed, I only have my kit of components that is taken into account. So even if I decide to change my price list here and to update the price, of course, my price list would update the price of my components, which are not part of my order line, so my price is not going to be updated in that case. The question is interesting because here it's about the logic of the price list, and let's say the way it's going to be run in Odoo. I personally have a question about the display. How should it be done? For example, in that case, if I decide, to apply some discount here, a different discount per product, what should I expect here in terms of display for my kit? It's not so clear, about how it should be done. So that could be first maybe a reason to make it a bit different. A bit more complicated, let's say, to make it automated. But if you take a use case, a more specific one, saying, no, but actually I'm not going to put a discount but a fixed price, and say, but actually indeed maybe instead of 20 and 15, I'm going to put a fixed price of 10. Of course, the issue is going to remain the same, but you could indeed expect, maybe in a way, that that my sales price would adapt to the price of my component. So it's not the case by default. Now we could imagine indeed how we could, let's say, be willing to do it different. In my opinion, that would request either like a different way of creating your kit. I have an idea for that, or it could be the way of doing some development to still adapt the price of the product based on the component, and we'll see why it is or not a good idea. If I just get back to my kit of my components here, this is a big advantage of a kit is that you just select one product and it's going to deliver the components of it directly. But recently I got a use case in which we used the combo type of product, and I think it could be still a way to make it work. Let's maybe make a kit of my components number 2 and make it as a combo this time. Okay, like this. Yes, and I need to create my combo choice, of course. And in that case, let's imagine that I have my component choice here, in which I have my component 1 and my component 2. And maybe so that I can add multiple ones. Yes, let's create 2 of them, that I can add maybe 2 components to my kit at that moment. All right, I know it maybe not answer the case here, but it's just to show you what is possible to be done as well, using a combo type of product. You need to know that the combo type of product is mainly here available, also used, for the point of sale. But for example, here it could be also a case where it could be interesting to use it. Because now if I decide to create a new quote and add my combo on this sales order, I will get a pop-up allowing me to choose a component out of my kit. So for example, here component 1 and component 2. I save it here. And so basically what happens is that my products are then directly added, in my sales order lines. And if I decide to choose here and adapt my price, it's going to be done properly. Probably it doesn't be the case in that context. So yes, probably the pricing is still coming from the quote, from the combo. So here the sales price of my combo. Okay, so it's not working neither. So in that case, indeed, it's not going to be possible. All right. Well, at least we investigated that case and we see it's not possible. So let's imagine. Let's take into account then that if you have a combo or a kit, the price will never depend on the components of the product, on the components of the good, except indeed if it is based on the if you base it on the price list. So yes, the question here would be, okay, should I adapt, as I said, the way my price is going to be taken into account and to adapt my sales price? It's very complex because at that moment, when you adapt here a price list, you get a certain method that is called, which is action update prices. Let's be a bit curious and dive into the code to see what this method is doing and see if we can understand it a bit more. So here, action update prices. Here on the sales order, and if we open it, so it's going to go to the right position. Yes. So here, let's say we have a few methods that are called recompute prices, especially also, which is defined there, which is also going to, let's say, compute some other sub-methods behind. So what is complicated here is that indeed if you want to modify that logic, you need to do it, let's say, through the code and to rewrite this kind of function that are already done. And you can easily see that it's more complex than it looks. So of course, changing the standard behavior is challenging at that moment. And you should, of course, in my opinion, compare it to the cost it represents, to just take into account in your price list the cost of the kit itself. Because of course in the price list here I could add my component 1 and 2, but I could also at the same time decide that I could adapt as well the price of my kit of my component and make it equal as well to 20 at that moment. So of course it means that I need to add a line for each of my kit on my price list. But is it, let's say, more costly to do that than rewriting the logic of the price list? Probably not. It depends also on the number of kits you have in your catalog, I would say. But at that moment, if I try again now to add my kit of my components in my good here, then I get the right pricing that's going to be applied, because it's going to depend on the price of my subcomponents on the same price list. I know it's a workaround. I know it's still a manual way of doing it, because you need to complete your price list based on all of your kits. But in my opinion, it's more interesting to do that than to, let's say, to do it with a modification of the code. Or maybe you could just do the modification of the code a bit differently, and why not? Then think about an automation stating that if you are going to add here some elements in your price rules about components, and if you notice that, based on an automation rule again, that you ever add all the components of a given kit in your catalog, then to automatically create a rule for that kit with the right price, depending on the components that you have added. I think then an automation like this would make more sense to be done. It still involves a bit of Python code, of course, to get that logic, but at least you don't need to modify the whole computation of the sales price on the sales order. So it would probably be a bit less expensive and a bit more efficient in the way you do it. Okay, because at some point you still need, of course, to go in the price list and to adapt the price of your components. So that's probably something, yes, to think about. But yes, so either keep the manual way of doing it, which is standard, or think about small customization. It was a very interesting question. So yes, thank you for sharing it with us. Okay, next question from Yusuf. Is there any way to make an auto replacement for internal transfer between the warehouse when the product gets to the minimum quantity? I think maybe I don't get your question, but I think if I can summarize it in a different way, I guess in your case you have two different warehouse, okay, with the same product in it. And maybe your question is, okay, if I reach at some point the minimum quantity in one warehouse, I would like to get an internal transfer to take product from the other warehouse into the main warehouse. That's what it looks, but maybe I may be a bit wrong, but just to make sure that's the case. What happens is that when you create multiple warehouses in your inventory, so let's try to do it. I'm first going to activate the multi-step routes in my inventory app, and then to create a second warehouse like this. Okay, WH2. Let's say, just to make things clearer, that this one is my warehouse 1. All right. What I can see is that by default, when I play with multiple warehouses, I get here on my second warehouse an out of the box option allowing me to make some replenishment of this warehouse based on the warehouse number 1, like this. What I do when I click on this option is that I'm going to unarchive a route, which is this one, for the replenishment of warehouse number 2 based on warehouse number 1. And this replenishment is, let's say, first we can set it up at the product level, product categories, and warehouse, what we just did actually. Well, not really, but at least we activated it at the warehouse option. But here we still need to say if by default we want it to be applied on the full warehouse. And then here we have some sub rules in it, which just explain to us that it will be in 2 steps. First, we make an output of my stock from my warehouse number 1, and then an input of my stock in my warehouse number 2, which is so the output here for a delivery order, and an input here for a receipt order here on my warehouse number 2. All right, so we have this behavior. Well, we have this option out of the box. What it allows us to do then is to go on a product. Let's maybe, I don't know, come back to our component to number 1 and 2, like this. So because they are tracked with inventory, I'm going to create a reordering rule. So on my warehouse number 2 stock, saying that if I am in between 5 and 10, let's say, here I need to replenish it. And how am I going to replenish it? I'm going to replenish it based on my warehouse number 1 here. So I'm not going to manufacture the good, I'm not going to buy it. Actually, I don't even have the purchase application for now. Let's maybe quickly install it just so that we have all the options on hand. But for now, indeed, it was not installed, so I did not get the buy route on my product. You will see that the buy route is probably activated by default on my product, so I will just remove it to make sure that I'm not going to create a purchase order if I need to. Yes, if I ever go below my minimum quantity. So if I come back to my products now and take a look at my component. All right, here, yes, that's good. So we'll leave it like this for my, warehouse number 2. And yes, I think that's okay. What I can do then is to create some on-hand quantity, but in my warehouse number 1, then saying maybe that I have 100 units on it, so that I have my quantity available on my warehouse number 1, and I have no quantity for now in my warehouse number 2. So here, if I look at my forecasted quantity, in warehouse number 1, I have quantities. If I go to warehouse number 2, I have nothing. So now it is done. We could expect indeed that some transfer will be automatically done based on each of my routes. To check that, what we could do is to go in my inventory app. I will activate debug mode quickly, and I'm going to run an operation which is called procurement run scheduler, which is going to go through all of my reordering rule and trigger the ones that needs to be triggered, basically, because they are firstly set in automated, and also because that's something that we need to replenish. So as I said, I should expect first to get a delivery order out of my warehouse number 1 here, and in that case that should go to my warehouse number 2. I got this one there. Yes. All right, so we see here it was created just now. Yes, at that time. And indeed, that's my transfer, that has been created automatically then in between my warehouse. And let's say I need to transfer 10 units. Why? It's because my component, if I come back to it, was set up with a minimal quantity of 5. So I was below my minimum quantity, so I need to trigger it, and I need to come back to my maximum quantity, in that case 10. And so that's why here now my forecasted quantity is supposed to be 10, because I have this, let's say, transfer that is ongoing. I can then firstly validate my delivery order out of my warehouse number 1, and second, go to the received order of my warehouse number 2 here, and validate the entry of my component 1 in my stock. Once it is done, now I can come back to my component number 1 and see that my goods have been properly distributed among, let's say, my 2 warehouses. So you see, so that's possible. It's not so complicated to do it like this, because it's an out-of-the-box feature. And of course, you could do it on both warehouses at the same time. You just need to reproduce my setup for each of the warehouses in that case. All right, perfect. Next question from Rajiv. What can we transactions data migration from Xero? I don't know what is Xero. Let me check. Just check. Okay, so that seems to be an accounting software, as I see. And so probably your question is to I don't know, like, when we discuss about data migration, you have 2 options. Like, you could even decide to keep, let's say, using Xero on your side because of some legal requirements, or because it's the way your customers is used to do it. Like, you cannot escape from that app, and so that you need to have some regular transaction and data migration in between Xero and Odoo. Or you could expect indeed just to make one transfer of data from Xero to Odoo, because you want from now to start using Odoo, properly at that point. So 2 different options. Let's start with the simplest one, the one shot. The fact that of course just of leaving Xero and going to Odoo to start using it. In that case, like, you just need to extract the data from Xero, to import it in Odoo. In Odoo, you need to know that you can import data, especially, let's say, or in the simplest way, if you are going to import it through an Excel or a CSV file. So if you are able to export it from Xero in that format, that's a good point to do it. Here you mentioned transactions. Here the question is also transactions on which, let's say, period of time. Is it since the creation of the company? Is it for the current year? Like, that's something that you need also to investigate. Mostly, like, we in Odoo decide to very rarely import all of the historical data about the accounting in Odoo, because we believe that the added value is pretty low while the amount of work to do it is very high. So we rather decide to import in Odoo the opening balance, of your stock. Something that you can show that you can see if you go in the chart of account and take a look at the import. Here is going to tell you that you can indeed make some imports of data. So here I'm in the Belgian company, as it seems. Or at least I have the Belgian localization that is installed. And yes, I can import, like, here, let's say, some journal items. I can also, I think, at some place, not by doing the import, yes, review manually. Yes, I can also put the amount of opening and debit and credit per account at the moment I want to start using it. So, well, that's, the case then for the import. So you import the opening balance for each of your ongoing account. And for all of the historical data, you just store it maybe in the documents application, in Excel file, keeping in mind that you can still open them and see them if you need to, at some point, make a comparison in between the years. But mostly, as, let's say, the balance sheet and all of the legal documents of the past fiscal period are closed, there is no big added value to do it again in Odoo. There are some exceptions for that. For example, in France, you have the FEC document that you can import in Odoo that is going to do the job for you. So it also depends on your localization and what is possible in your country. But if your question is to make then let's say, a migration of data on a regular basis, then that's a development that you need to do, to transfer the data from one to another. What you need to think about is, let's say, about the trigger. What is going to trigger that migration of data? Is it, let's say, 1 time per day, 1 time per week, so a regular, let's say, synchronization in between the 2 tools? or is it something that you want to do, let's say, on action? So every time you create a transaction of 0, you push it as well to Odoo. So you need to create that integration in between the apps. We can still take a look, if something exists for that. Integration 0 Odoo, see if an app is already existing. For example, here it seems to be one, developed by one of the partners and making it available on the Odoo app stores. I cannot tell you, if this app is good or not. We do not grant it, when they are available here on the site. What you can see is that it's not for the current version of the tool, so you can probably not use it if you are not in the right version. Yes, for example, this one is available for Odoo 18 already. What I suggest you to do is to maybe ask for a demo, ask to maybe test a bit and see how it goes before purchasing it, and also make a proper review of the code if you want to install it in your database. Of course, you could also decide to develop this integration by yourself. For that, just note that there is an Odoo API documentation available if you want to use the API of Odoo, and just of course, when you just extract it out of 0, create the right data in Odoo as well. And for that, you have some, let's say, available methods that you can use as a create record, if you want to create then the transactions in Odoo at the same moment. So yeah, that's something that a developer can do. It's not so complex to be done, but at least here you have some documentation to know what is Odoo specific and how to do it. And of course, you need to have you need to do the same job on the 0 point of view to make it. Maybe it completed the information. Can you just come a bit? Yes. For client distribution company already live and an upcoming F&B outlet, we need to transfer the existing transactional data from 0 and point of sale systems into dedicated Odoo companies. We recommend the phased migration approach into separate Odoo entities. All right. Well, I think about the best practice, that you mentioned, Rajiv. That's what I said. From my point of view, you should try to challenge the customer and try to not import all of the historical transactions that you have in 0 into Odoo, because you will struggle a lot. You will spend a lot of time on that, and at the end, let's say you will get a very small added value, for a customer who is already using Odoo, for now, and that is going to use Odoo, in the future. So I will not spend too much time on that first. I would challenge them, ask them if it's okay to simply import the opening balance for now, in Odoo, so that they can start using it. And maybe in the future, if they really feel like, okay, we need to get the transactional data, at least they are already using Odoo, so that's good. And then you start thinking about importing the transactional data from the past. What you need to know, is that importing record in Odoo can be challenging. For everything linked to accounting, it's even more challenging because you have a lot of data to prepare. Like, you need to know the partner needs to exist, the journals need to exist, the currency and the currency rate as well if you are importing in different currencies. So what I would suggest you to do is simply to make sure first, before thinking about the export and import of data from 0 to Odoo, to make sure that you get everything in Odoo, all the information to do the import. And if you don't, then to create the partners, to create the products, to create the taxes, whatever, to make sure that you already first get the master data available in the tool. Once you do that, once you are sure it's the case, you can start thinking about exporting and importing it inside of Odoo. Need to know, of course, that importing, let's say, some accounting data as this one is, so it's pretty heavy. You will spend time on that and so on. I would also do it first in a test database so that you can, let's say, easily post them and see if your accounting report are correct or not. So yes, just take the time, do it step by step. Of course, do it maybe entity per entity, because as you know, like for example, the journals, the taxes are company dependent. So trying to do all the import for all the companies at the same time is pretty much a nightmare. So yes, try to let's say to proceed step by step. It's possible to do it, but it's not ideal. And as I said, at the end, the added value is not very high. So maybe for the customer, it will not be properly understood why you spend so much time, while for them it may seem easy, or maybe it may not seem at some point very important. But you said that one of your clients is already live. So for them, indeed, if there is no other things that is going on. It's simply the last thing that remains on the project, and they are okay to spend time on that, or for you to spend time on that. Why not? And then just try to apply here the approach. About the point of sale, it's even more tricky because like if I go to, actually I did not install it yet. Let's try to install my point of sale first to see what it looks. Because like if you need to import, my opinion, that does not make sense, okay, to import the historical data of a point of sale systems into Odoo, because like you will struggle a lot, and I'm just going to show you why first. If you go to a point of sale and take a look at a session, for example, of a point of sale, you will see that a session is attached to many different things in Odoo, like the orders, the payment, journal items, cash register. I'm not even sure you can import that things. No, you cannot. So like, yes, don't do it. To be honest, it's something that I'm not even sure it's feasible. It's probably technically feasible, but in practice, that's very complex. And at the end, I don't even know what the customer would like to achieve with that. I mean, just at that moment, import the accounting data. That's what seems important in that case. But yes, don't import like the historical data about the point of sale. I'm not sure it will be very useful for your customer at the end. Okay, so yeah, it was pretty much a discussion. I hope it was clear. If you have more, let's say, more questions based on what I said, of course, don't hesitate to say them. Okay, next question from Razia: how to keep a record of inventory with supplier? I'm not sure to understand the question, Razia. So if you can complete it a bit, about your question. So how to keep a record of inventory with supplier, it would be useful. I could, let's say, imagine what you mean, but maybe it's better if you can just complete your question. Maybe just to help you with that, what I mean is that you don't really have an inventory with supplier. You could indeed purchase some goods at a specific supplier. But if your idea is simply to take a look at all the goods you have purchased to one specific supplier, that's something we can indeed discuss together. For example, if I go to my inventory and my moves history here, I get probably somewhere, yes, a contact attached to it. And so I could take a look at everything that is incoming in my warehouse, like this. And yes, from a vendor here, and I have here the name of my vendor, and so I could group it then by contact, which is here, and see indeed all of the incoming goods that were coming from one specific supplier at some point in my stock. That's a way of doing it. You could also maybe do it for the current stock. That's something that we can discuss. But I just want to make sure first that that's your question. Also, just note that every time you purchase something to a specific vendor, you are creating at the same time the vendor price list record here that are going to track all the historical pricing that a specific vendor made with you. For example, here showing, okay, a large cabinet was purchased with this price at that date. Here I could add the start date, which is empty. I could display the creation date, which is not the case here. To see, yes, when it was done, created on, like this, yes, and then see indeed the evolution of the pricing then by product for a specific vendor. So that's something that you can do as well. But I don't know if it was your question at first. All right. Next question from Bavik: how to create multi-level expense category? Probably when you say multi-level, okay, I probably need to investigate a bit more what you mean by multi-level. Is it something, because you mean that you want to have multi-level of approvals on an expense, or it's because you want to get some categories that have some hierarchy relationship, in between each other? So to check both of these questions, we're going to simply install the expense app first, and we'll take a look, we'll investigate a bit about the expense category model to see what we have in it, and see if something is maybe helping us to answer this question. All right, so expense categories, and here it is. So, all right. So what I can see is that I get still some kind of category attached to my expense categories. So which means that here I can still attach it to one of my inventory category that I have in my database. What I cannot do, as it seems, is to link an expense category to another expense category to get some hierarchy. Let's to make sure, okay, to be sure it's the case. First, what you can see that's interesting actually is that the expense categories are simply product, and they are not proper categories or specific models. So they are simply product in Odoo. So that it answers part of the question. And indeed, in that case, you cannot link a product to another specific product to make some hierarchy. Well, as I said, I'm not sure it was your original question at first, but if that's the case, maybe you need to understand why you want to get that kind of reporting, because basically that kind of information, because it could be for reporting. That's what I meant. If you go here for the expense analysis, you can indeed decide to group it by category, which will be actually my, in that case, expense category. But as we saw that the expense category is also attached to a product category, that's something that we could probably use here to make it work. Let's quickly see. So yes, we are on the model HR expense. So if I decide here to add a related field on it, starting from my category, yes, and then again category, product category, like this. So I'll see as my related category of my expense, which is a field that I can simply make visible for now. I don't need to pay attention to it. But the fact that I added it to my model makes it possible now in my expense analysis probably to look and to group it on this specific category. Yes. And then I could, for example, first take a look at, let's say, my main category and then my subcategories, to see indeed or to get a multi-level expense category. That's a small customization, let's say, to make it available in the pivot table. That's something that we can do to play with related fields. So yeah, I don't know if it was your question again, but that could be a way to answer a question. If your question was more about, let's say, a multi-level of approvals for a specific category, what we saw here is that if we get this specific expense here and I create my report based on that, I can submit it to the manager and I will get one level of approval here on my expense. The approver of my expense here will be the person defined on my employee profile in that field about the approvers of my apps. If I have nobody, it will be the manager. If I have nobody, it will be, let's take a look, Mitchell admin. So yes, probably in that case, someone who has sufficient access rights in the expense app. But yes, it's still interesting to see that at some point it gets back to the admin of the database. Yes, that's something that we could probably find somewhere if we wanted to investigate. Let's see if that's interesting afterwards. But maybe yes, no, not that one that I wanted to do. Let's come back to this. Okay, so here indeed, so we see that the approval has been sent. If I don't have enough access rights, I cannot approve it myself. So here indeed we have a one-level approval that is done by that is by default the person would define on the employee profile. If I want to add more levels to it, an easy way to do it then could be so not on this one, maybe on this one here, to add some, let's say, approval step on the approve button, stating that if, let's say, so my manager is going to be, let's say, the first person to approve it. And let's imagine that this person is then part of some employee admin group. I could make it like this because let's say it's one of my managers, so I could probably define them in a way. And then I could say, but okay, so that's my first approval. Then I want my second approval to be maybe someone from the expense, let's say, yes, here. Oh, actually, I could do it like this as well. So first state that it will be maybe my expense team approver. And second, for example, my accounting admin, for example. accounting administrator. Yeah. So something like this, then will prevent the button to be used. If 2% did not do it. In that case, it worked. Why? It's because I have the higher access rights. So in that case, as I can, as I part of both groups, the fact of just approving it make it okay for the 2 levels. I just want to check something, that if I could start again, I could also just, I think, select, yes, one of them here and select only one of the 2, and so leave the second one for someone else. You could play also with Studio on some of the warnings that you can do here to notify a specific user. If someone's going to click on it but do not have enough access rights. A description as well, maybe to explain who should be aware about this. Well, many things can be done at that level. But yes, in my opinion, that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, and I get now your explanation, Babik. So it was indeed about the multi-level hierarchy. I hope I understood I answered your question then with the reporting. But of course, it depends also what you want to do. Then once you get that hierarchy, is it about reporting or is it about something else? Here I answered about reporting. But if you have a different use case, don't hesitate to tell me about it. All right. Next question from Ricard. Hello. Question about project app settings. Is there a way to set up the project app so that users have access rights to edit, manage, delete project task? Okay. Maybe first I'm going to take a look at the access rights of the users of the project app. Because, yes, okay, but still, we're going to first go to the task model and see a bit in terms of access rights what is happening. Okay, so what we see is that, okay, so we have indeed the portal users and the internal user. What we can see is that internal user can, let's say, already read, write, create and delete the record. That's the same for the project user, but of course you need to add next to it the record rules to know in which context you can do it here, and you need to see what happens. For example, there we see indeed that the project user, so we have different record rules, which is a bit complex, but it seems in most of the case that the portal users can still do it when they have access to the record, let's say, because as you may know, not all of the projects can be visible by everyone. If I go to the settings of a project, I can here modify the visibility of my project and make it invisible for internal users that are not part of it, and you are part of a project if you are added as a follower of it. So here, so the question is a bit more complicated than it seems, maybe, about your question, Ricard, because it depends a bit on which project you want to tackle. Is it, let's say, all the projects? Is it only the projects that are visible or not? If what we see basically is that if I have a user who has access to, which is a user of the project app, it could indeed delete, manage, and create new task. But you say edit, manage, and delete. Maybe what you don't want is people to create new tasks. That's maybe your question in that case. Okay, let's try. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to take a look at the users in my database and create a new one, which is a project user. All right, and I'm just going to make it a user on the project app. Okay, and remove all the rest that we are not going to be disturbed by something else, and also hierarchy link in between the apps. So of course, the more apps you get, so the more complicated it is to modify the access rights. You need to know, maybe because you see that I take a bit of time to do it, you need to know that when you create a new user in Odoo, you actually duplicate an existing one. That's why you get some by default settings every time you create a new user. And this user is called here the default user template. What you can do in a database is to simply change the access rights of the default user template to the most common case you face in that company. So maybe you have some restricted access rights already, so that every time someone will create a new user in the database, then you will get these by default settings currently set up. So that's for that's a very easy way then to make it faster, at least on some Odoo 18 database. But you need to know that you could also do it in a different way, starting from Odoo 18.3, I think, because you can start creating some profile of the users directly in the groups and access rights. But that's something that we, if you have interest in that we can discuss maybe later on in the Odoo Insider. So maybe first to answer that question about the project user. So if I go in the project, I can see the task. Well, actually I have no task, so maybe go and take a look at all the tasks. All right, and here I could probably delete it. Yes, I can. I can create a new one, so I can do pretty much everything I want on the current, let's say, task I have access to. Of course, here you see that it was very easy for me to delete a task. Of course, if the task is linked to some data, and that makes it impossible to be deleted, it will not be possible to delete it. Okay, so that's the same as any apps in Odoo. So if your question then, because I'm not sure, Ricard, but if your question is at the start, to prevent people to by default be able to delete, to create a new task, which could be surprising, but maybe that's your question, then what you could do is to simply go in the project app, in the access rights of the task, sorry. So there, and yes, access rights. And there what we could do, probably, think that I would not maybe change this one there, because it's a bit complicated. I'm just going to take a look at the record rules and see if there is a rule for project administrator. No. So, yes, there is one. Here, see all the tasks linked to a project or its own task. Okay, so it seems to be good. So what we could probably try here is to, just for a test, you could decide to just simply remove the create option here on the record rule. Of course, I will explain afterwards if it works, how you should do it properly, but at least simply there to see if it makes a change. So if I go back to my old task, okay, I can still create it. So that's probably as well because at the same moment I need to change the access rights of my corresponding user. It's not so easy because, of course, like you have at the same time, some different access rights that are, let's say, applied with each other, because you have here the internal user who have already some rights and the user as well. So it's really complicated to modify it, because if you modify things at that place, it could have an impact as well on the portal user and on any users that can play with the database at the same time. Okay, and Ricard, I saw that indeed, with stages. Okay, indeed, it was not very clear about the question at first then. Okay, so you mentioned the stages. All right, so yes, maybe let's try to make a focus then on it. And the task stages, I guess. All right. And here, indeed, by default, people can do it. But the task stages, for some reason, are not editable, deletable. All right. For user, well, you could do it right on stages. So the one where the user of the stage is the user of. Okay, so there seems to be a user field somewhere here on that model. Yes, a stage owner, which is this one, which is pretty much empty all the time. So just because it allows you at some point maybe to add a user to it to prevent people, let's say, to edit it. So indeed, by default, then it is only the project administrator who can edit it. So if you want to change it, then Ricard, and you don't want to play with this notion of approver, well, I would probably maybe in that case, because here, but I cannot change it anyway. So it means probably that this field is computed. Okay, let's try to take a look at it. So I'm going to go in the fields, stage owner, and we see that it's in the project app. So let's go in the project alone, in the models, and here project, which is called task stage, project task type. This one. And there should be the user ID, which is indeed computed, and it's computed with this formula. User ID cannot be set together for a stage. It can happen that project ID is set after the stage creation. When sending data, in such case, the default user ID has to be removed. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to make a test. If I create a new stage, then is it going to be set up by default to something like test? It did not create it. I maybe need to. No, why cannot? Why doesn't it appear? It's strange. I will do it from here then. Stage new. All right. Now the stage owner still remains empty because here they set it to false, whatever happens. Default user ID has to be removed. Well, the thing is that here it doesn't seem so obvious to me what is the purpose of the stage owner and how it is, let's say, computed and defined. It seems to be empty by default when you create something new. So the thing is that then the record rule, which is this one, is never going to be applied by default, at least if this field remains empty. It may be the case, only when you are playing with some private project, and so with also stages that are private and that you can only delete by your own. That's probably the case. If you want to change that, what you could do then is simply to deactivate that rule here. No, not unarchive, but archive it. And simply there then to apply that case for the project user only and not project administrator. So because the project admin are also project user. And when you do that, if I connect again as a project user, I might get the chance now to come back to my project here. And okay, I still don't have the option to edit it, but that's probably something to that is, yeah, maybe restricted on the view itself. We could check it if I go to Mitchell admin. Project user, yes, I can still do it. Yeah, it's not so easy. In my opinion, that's something, but I may not be able to find it now. It would maybe require a bit more of investigation. But in my opinion, here the pop-up that you get when you click on the anti icon is not really linked to the access right of the user, but well, it is, but it's probably defined somewhere else. In terms of view, in my opinion, because you have some access right on one side and also the right links to a specific view because you can modify the view to make it different. So I would say here that the list that we get is simply different depending on what you get as a right when you connect. And that's something that you could indeed be willing to change. That's maybe JavaScript as well. It would not be surprising, that it is the case. So unfortunately, we maybe not be able to go further than this. Still, I still have an option for you to make it work. If you really want people to be able to edit the stages, without having to modify here maybe the interface and maybe do a bit of JavaScript, you could simply create a new menu, or maybe just move the existing one and move the task stages maybe to this menu that the users can access, like this. So that now if I decide to create as a project user, I will then get probably the possibility to access my task stages, yes, and here I can create a new one and I can edit an existing one. So that because the access rights, you have it, we modified that so that we know it works. But yes, so it's a different way of doing it, but at least it can probably, by default, just remove this constraint that you get for now, which is that people cannot, by themselves, going to edit, manage, and delete the project stages. Well, here, I was also discussing about the task stages. If you mention the project stages, the idea is the same. Okay, so you just need to do the same as we did here. I know it's not maybe the right model, but anyway, that's still the idea. Okay, so I would prefer in that case, to just modify the menu than modify the interface because it may seem a bit more complicated than it seems. All right. Next question. From Vadim. Hello, Antoine. Is it possible to track the packages, plastic bins, when I do transfers between my two companies? Once the delivery is finished, I want the packages to return to my main company. Okay, so in that case, what could be a possibility is that you kind of consider, in that situation, that your plastic bins, your package is a good because you want to make it back to the main company, so that you keep probably a track then of your package itself. While in Odoo, if we simply discuss about the packages of your, yes, I need to come back as a main user, and maybe here, I'm maybe going to activate the packages as well in my database. I'm not sure it's the case already. No, it's not. Yes. Okay, let's activate both. Yes. So let's take an example of this packaging that we get here. At least the package types, it's pretty much the same. I don't know which one we really want to make a focus on here, because this one is mostly to give the dimension related to the delivery, while the second one is more about the way of packaging your goods and know how to deliver them, and yes, in which multiple quantities need to be delivered, for example. Anyway, here, when you create something like this, you don't consider it as a piece of your stock, because it's just simply a packaging. It's part of your goods. It's going to leave indeed the warehouse with your goods that you are going to deliver. So it means that if you decide to make it part of a transfer in between two companies, you cannot really make a return of that good back to your company. If that's something that you want to do, I would suggest you maybe to add then the packaging as well as a line of your delivery order of your transfer, in between the two companies, to make it easy and not go too much into the details. You could make it like this. Okay, acoustic block screen. You confirm it, and on the delivery, then you add as well to the delivery your plastic bins. All right, you track the inventory as well. Okay, let's imagine that we deliver both of them to be able to validate the delivery. what you could do then, of course, here I know I make a simple delivery from my company to a customer. I could do it, in between two companies, but the idea is the same, is that afterwards you can make a return of the good and simply explain that you want to return one quantity of your plastic bin. And then you're going to make the direction, well, let's say the way back into your main warehouse so that you can bring back your plastic bin inside of your main company. That's an option. Of course, it works. It works if you decide to add these plastic bins, this package, as you explained, as part of your lines of your transfer of stock. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's an option. I don't know if you already thought about it. But if you do, at least you can make a return and keep track of how the goods are going to come back from one place to another. Because of course then you can add a serial number and make sure to keep track of all the different transfer that those goods are following. But if you don't consider them as goods and you are not then able to add them, here in the product lines of your goods, it's very complicated because the packaging are mostly here a characteristic of your delivery, but it's not really something that you can transfer then because you don't have quantities of it in your stock. So to me, the solution is to consider the package as a good. It does not prevent you to also add it as a packaging also in that column, Of course, it's you can do both, but at least if you want to keep track of the different transfer, that's something that you can do. All right. Next question from Anch. Sir, I want to add QR or barcode scanning in the manufacturing app. It's built-in barcode app. It's only for inventory management. Okay, so, for example, I just try to imagine what you would like to scan, at that moment to make it work. Is it, for example, if you just then come back to it, I guess your idea would be, okay, then I scan to probably mark that I want to produce all of them. So that instead of using the shop floor here and making it, make the production going from that screen, you want to be able to simply scan to mark it as done. I guess that's your point. I know that still, if we go and take a look at the inventory barcodes that we get there in terms of commands and operation type, is there something related to the manufacturing? So yes, we have the return. Yes, we still have a manufacturing type of operation. So I would say that it is available because probably here, if I take a look at my manufacturing order, I can print a production order. Yes, which has a QR code. So I would say it exists. If you open your let's say your barcode app and you scan here the thing that you want to target a manufacturing order, you target your manufacturing order and you mark, let's say here the operation manual assembly as done. Probably you can still move on, with your corresponding operations. If I go here and take a look at the barcode app, operations, manufacturing, I have the manufacturing of this one. Yes, no, I think it works. And so yes, you can add component or produce it. So yes, I'm a bit surprised, and I think that's something that is out of the box for the manufacturing app as well as for the inventory app. So maybe try again now that I showed you that. Maybe you are not also on the same version. So if you are on an older version, please tell me so that we can maybe check at least until Odoo 16. But yes, in my opinion, that's something that you should be able to do on the barcode app as well. All right. Next question from Wayne. Hello. How is it possible to limit a Gantt view group by user, like the planning by user view in field service, to not display all users but only users in a specific group or on a custom field? Okay, good, interesting question actually. Let's take a look. Okay, I just want to leave the barcode app. Yes, here. Perfect. So for example, I can go in the planning and decide here, and that's already the case, to group it by user, like this. All right, and so indeed I get the corresponding grouped by, for example, here, of course, for each of them, nothing is used because basically the planning is mainly used in that case by employee or by resource. which is by default the fact that, well, the display that we have by default when you open the planning application. So your question is then to, from a general point of view, to decide to group by something, but to at the same time limit the number of data that are going to be displayed. Well, actually, we could do it for the resources. Let's imagine that we only want to see in the resource Abigail, Aka, and Aka Foster, and Anita. Then what you could do indeed is to still group it by resource, but at the same time to add a filter on the resource here to simply take a look at Abigail, Aka Foster, and Anita. If I do it, then I have indeed the situation that you explained, because I get both the group by that I expect, but also the limitation based on some value that I want. Well, of course, that's not an answer to your question, but it's just to show you, let's say, the process. Now your idea is to not only display all the users, but only the users in a specific group. The thing is that let's try to take a look about how we can do it. Probably it's first easier if we, let's say, make it based on I don't know. We need to try a few things. First, I would like to know if there is something. Yes, for example, if I take, if I go to the field service application, I don't know, I don't have it yet. I'll go to the field service. I will install it first, because I know that in the field service we have something, let's say by default filter that is going to be used. I think I have the same in project actually that I could have used, which is my task, which allow me to take a look at my task, and the idea it would be to understand how Odoo is defining which is my task, basically. Filter. So, all right, if I open field service, I get that filter, and that filters, yes, is taking a look at the UID in that case, which is one of the parameters that we have to target the current user who is going to be connected to the database. And in that case, indeed, taking a look at the user IDs, which are the assignees of the record, and compare it to it. We have access to this record. We have access to the fields on my corresponding model. What is good, in my opinion, is that here, then I get the intuition that I can use dynamic filter, in my filter. So that's what I could do then, is to go back in my planning app. Yes, but the problem is that here I need to get some kind of data. Let's try to do something. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try. On the users, I'm going to simply here make delegated lists. But yes, for that first, I need to go in the planning and know what a resource is. Resource. Here is a field coming to resource. Okay. So if I focus on that part, then I will make it on the resource because I have more data, but it will be the same for the users. Okay, but anyway, what I'm going to do is to add many to many here, link to resource, like this. I'm going to make it as some tags and call it available resources. So the one that I can access from my view, and here select same Abigail, Aka Foster, and Anita Oliver. Okay, this field is called probably Xstudio available resources. Yes, that's easy. And now what I would like to do is to come back to my planning app. I'm going to first create a filter manually, which will be resource. Here is in Abigail, well, anything I want here. And then to save that filter by default, call it, let's say Gantt view, share it, okay, if I want. And then we'll go in the definition of that filter here. And I'm going to simply edit the body of my filter and replace it by uid.xstudio available resources. And now if I try again to refresh my page and to apply that filter, okay, I get an error, unfortunately. And this error, it says that it's none. Okay, so because here my right part of my field is not going to be available. Available resources. I just want to make sure that I did not misspell it first, because it could be a very obvious error, but maybe it's just simply not going to work like this. If it does not, I have maybe another idea before giving up about that question. Alright, also to make sure that it's the same format as the one that we have there. Probably here the problem is that, yeah, I don't know. I think it's not going to change anything if I do that, but no. Yeah, it doesn't seem to work as I could expect. The thing is that I don't know if in the filter we can make this kind of expression, going from one field to another inside of the corresponding record that we are targeting. So it's a bit out of my scope here. If let's say we want to make the filter dynamic based on the corresponding record, I never did it in the past, and I don't really know what is the exact format to do it. I could have expected to do it like this, but it doesn't seem to work. The problem that we have is that we accept, the current user that is connected. We cannot really add a custom field on record because, let's say, in that case, we are going to make it specific here, but then the comparison is not going to be possible because we want to compare the record with itself. So basically, the answer will not be possible to do it like this. So yes, I think I would probably then play with some favorite filters as I did. And maybe it depends also on how many groups of users you have, like is it only 5 or 6, or is it a lot of them that are supposed to be displayed differently? Because in that case, nothing prevents you, if you have only a few of them, to create all the favorite filters by yourself, in which you define manually which are the resources per group, like this. Now, so that you make it clear, this is group 1, group 2, and group 3, for example. So that could be a way indeed to make it work, so that you reuse always the same kind of filters. But if in your case the idea is simply to make sure that you don't display other people and simply the one that you want to get, what you could do as well, by still keeping the solution standard, and because I want to still give you a solution about that case, could be that you create some different menus to your planning app. Linking every time to the same planning slot app. For example, planning slot group 1, existing model, planning shift, good, which is this one. On that menu, then, which if I open it, let's say I can then display the same view, of course. What I could do is to create a filter to only display the resource from a specific subgroup of user. Okay. And so this filter that I get here, I can add it to the menu, to my action actually of my menu, which is there. So that every time then someone is going to connect to this specific page here, is going to get a limited interface in terms of who we can access. That's mean that he cannot change, so he cannot by himself decide to see more of the information that are displayed on the screen. And so that indeed you would create one menu per group, and afterwards you just play with the access rights of the corresponding menu items, something that you can play with here. If you take a look at the planning, so you would say that the planning of slot group 1 would be only accessible by one specific group of user, that you have inside of your app, and so you create one, of course, for the corresponding group of user that you mentioned, while maybe the schedule, so which is the main page for the planning here, could be only accessible by the planning administrator, maybe, so the one who really need to take a look at all the interface, but at least maybe you just divide by creating new menus per different group of user. I hope it's clear, but once again, my idea is here to keep things as simple as possible, and I take some assumptions. Here the assumption is that you don't have, like, say, 1,000 groups. If you have only a few groups, that's something that you can do. The interface will still be clean because they will, let's say, if I'm part of a specific group, I will lose the schedule menu, but I will have access to this specific planning slot, and so it should be okay, and easy to maintain, because if someone is going to go from one group to another, what you just need to do is to adapt here the action and edit, of course, the domain to make it work, as well as, of course, modifying as well the group of users. But I mean, that's something that is doable, if also the group is not supposed to change every day, I guess. But same, that's something you need to take into account, so yeah. And if you don't want to do that, you need to play indeed with dynamic filter. The thing is that here I don't really know how it should be achieved, in terms of how, okay? Because I don't see and I don't have the knowledge of an existing filter in Odoo that is doing it already, so I'm not sure it's possible to do it. But maybe. Or maybe with a module or a development. That's probably possible as well. All right. Next question from Sumit. Hello. How do I enable VoIP app on existing website on Odoo? I'm going to install the app as well. When you say that you want to enable VoIP app, it's just that, just to make sure, I actually also need to activate the website application. All right. So he is going to propose me to create my website. I will not spend too much time on that. It's just that I just would like to know what you want to do with the VoIP app on the website. Is it something that because here the purpose of the VoIP, as I understand it, is simply need to schedule and make calls from a database. So that's something that you mostly use then from the backend, to call your customers or your suppliers and discuss directly from it. What's a bit surprising here to me is that you would then like to do it from the website, which would mean maybe leave the option to someone to call, to call you from the website. Well, that's not something that I think is available. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me just type simply VoIP Odoo website to see if I get something that makes it available. So here, just to schedule the call, yes. So same here, I don't see much things. Yes. So yes, the need is a bit surprising to me. If you just want to, by Odoo website, maybe you mean just your database. Indeed, just by installing the VoIP, then you can make it work and just select here the right VoIP providers. I mean, I cannot show you because I don't have one that is activated, but if you just take a look at the documentation, here you can get to know how to configure it afterwards inside of your app, inside of your database. But yes, in my opinion, it should not be something that should appear on the website. But maybe what you are thinking of is not this. It's what you have, for example, on odoo.com/help, which is here the small, chat that you have, a chat box that you have here on the website. That's something different. The chat here is something that you can activate, I think, from the that's a good question. I never know where it could be activated from. I would say, yes, live chat. Okay, so by default, even when you just get the website, you can activate it. So we're probably going to activate as well. So a few more settings to be able to predefine it. But yes, that's something that you can do. And when you get the live chat activated, then people can contact you from the website and you can discuss with them from the chatter here on the interface. So probably, I think when I do that, I get a live chat module that is installed. I can join then here a session and start discussing indeed with some visitors if I want to go. So for now, I'm just actually am I part of it, but if I join it now and I go to my website to discuss with myself, let's try to do it. Here. Hello. Okay, but at the same time, of course, as I discuss with myself, it opens the internal box as well. But well, we see how it works. If that's what you call the VoIP, indeed, that's not very complicated to make it work. That's simply, yes, by enabling here the live chat option and discussing for the website. So yeah, probably that's something that can answer your questions. Okay, next question from Gautam. Hi sir, in Odoo 18, how to view an overall inventory report that includes everything like sales, purchase, internal transfer, adjustment, and manufacturing orders. The problem that you have first is that, let's say, the record, the data model of each of the things that you mentioned are different. For example, sales orders are part of the sale order model, while purchase order are part of the purchase order model. Well, here not in the right place, but here that's the same that I get. So basically, each of your data are stored in different tables in Odoo. So it's not possible, technically, I mean, from the interface, to get one menu with a list view that is going to show all of those records at the same place, simply because they don't contain the same field. Okay, so you cannot really get a list for each of them. But luckily, you have something that can do the job for that, which is a dashboard application here, in which you can indeed get some data from many different applications and gather them inside of your unique dashboard, in which you can make the follow-up on each of your data. That's indeed a very nice way of doing it, because personally I'm a dashboard addict, so I know that it's something that can be very useful. And so, for example, if we do it very fast, okay, but just to show you what is the purpose of it. So I can start, for example, from my sales app here, and I'm going to then here insert the list in my spreadsheet, like this. I could decide how many records I want to add at the same moment. Probably, the thing is that like you could add, of course, 1,000 lines. But the problem is that you get a very long table. One of your questions could be, okay, I want to take a look at this report for a week, for example, on a week period of time, or on a few days period of time. Then you can just imagine how many records do you have in average, on that corresponding period of time, and you take a margin to make sure that it works. For example, I could say 75. Okay. Okay, I don't have the documents application installed, so I cannot create a spreadsheet. I will do it now so that it will be easier for us to play with that. I could directly create a dashboard as well, but let's say I have the chance to install quickly the document application, so let's do it like this. But of course, you could directly create a dashboard if you want to. The difference is that the spreadsheet is stored in the Documents app, while the dashboard is stored in the Dashboard application. So that's that's a very small difference, but it's still a difference. So if I start again and here insert my list in a blank spreadsheet now, let's say I take 75 order, like this. So I get my first list of my order that is here. And then what I could do, let's say my full summary report. And then I could simply go in my purchase app and do the same and insert this one here, let's say 25, and insert it in my full summary report as well. For now, they are in two different sheets, but of course I can simply here decide to, let's say, copy it, go at the bottom of my existing page and paste it. And now then I get first a list of my sales order. I can go down, I have a list of my purchase order. Here, of course, it's all a question of design then and how to make things clear, you know. You could add, let's say, a header to make things clearly about the difference. What is the difference in between? As I said, you can add some date filter, for example, here for the period of time that you want to consider. Let's say taking it from 2. And on my order, I will take the date order date, and for my quotation I will take the date of the confirmation of my purchase order. Alright, and then I can take a look at the data from this week, for example. And it's directly updated in terms of what is displayed. Okay, so of course I could do the same for the transfers. I could do the same, exactly in the same way, okay, for the manufacturing orders. For the adjustments, you need to know a bit what you are thinking of. You know, do you want to take a look at all the adjustments that were done in your database? For that part, maybe it's a bit more tricky because an adjustment is something that you can see in the moves if story here. If you imagine that the from location, for example, is your inventory adjustment location. And then indeed you get a list of it, and that's this list that you can insert as well in the spreadsheet to get a list of all of your adjustments. Okay, so as I said, now we'll not spend too much time on the design of my spreadsheet because it's really not relevant, but let's imagine that it's ready, you know, that's something that I'm really happy with. I can then decide to insert it and add it to my dashboard application. Here, select, for example, my logistics section, and I get my report. Okay, as you see, the more you get lines, the more difficult it will be to read it. So that's also something that you need to take into account. Okay, to still make it useful. What is interesting is that also it's dynamic, so you can click on a record and go directly to it at the same moment. But here there's a lot of best practice, you know, that we could think of to make it better. One of them, you know, is something that you can see, for example, in the sales dashboard, that is a standard one here, is the fact that in that case, you know, we decide to display a top quotations or a top sales orders. You know, with here a top 10 of some existing sales orders for the corresponding filter that I have chosen. But, you know, if I click here on the title of my corresponding record, I can also get access to the whole list. So here not the case, but I get access to the whole list of the orders, you know, if I want to. So that, you know, the dashboard becomes, let's say, some shortcuts. Like you get the key information on the screen, but if you want, you can simply click on it and get access to the whole information if you need to. And in my opinion, that's what you should be going to, willing to do at least, because it allows you then to keep a nice interface. You keep some KPIs that are important for you, but at least you don't get a whole list of everything that is displayed, you know, and where you can get a bit lost in terms of what is done. So yes, something to keep in mind. Yes, a lot of things to be done here. If you're a bit used to Excel, that's even easier to do it. So yes, play with that and see what is going on. You can let's say you can get some training from consultants of Odoo on it if you have a success pack to do it. It would be with pleasure. You have also some videos from the Odoo experience, for example, also or some webinar. I think if I type Odoo webinar. Odoo spreadsheet. Yeah, I type 2 times Odoo. Yes, this one's from 2020, so it's a bit old. But yes, you get some what's new in spreadsheet and dashboard. For example, this one in 2024, so during the last Odoo experience, showing you a bit some tips and tricks about how it is done. So that's something that you can think of. All right. Okay. So next question. I have a follow-up question on the pricing rules. Okay, is it possible to have pricing being done on the vendor price, so directly from the purchase module? I have found an OCA module for it, but why is it not supported out of the box? There are a lot of companies that apply pricing as percentage markup on the vendor price. Okay, yes, that's indeed a very good question. What you have, and probably you know it already, is that when you play with the price list here, you can make a formula to base your sales price on your cost. And the cost, in a way, indeed is coming from your purchase price, because basically that's where you're going to, every time you purchase a good, depending on your valuation strategy, on your valuation method of your stock, is going to adapt the cost. The problem that we have here is that by default, in Odoo, there is no straight link in between a product that I buy versus the cost that it cost me in the past when I purchased it to my vendor, except if I am indeed in a FIFO strategy, for example, or if I decide to track my goods by lot and serial number. But let's say from a general point of view, it's not the case. If I take a look at serial numbers, for example, do I have the information? Yes, here I have information about the cost that it brought in the past. The problem that I have is that I only select my lot and serial number at the stage of my delivery order and not at the stage of my sales order. So indeed, I cannot take this cost that it cost me in the past, into account to compute it. But you could imagine to make once again. So I agree. So your feedback is good. Indeed, it's not something that you can do except based on the cost, which is done. So that field. So if you play with the cost field of your good, which is this one, you can compute the sales price in the price list, but this cost is going to change, of course, depending on your valuation method here of your category. So standard price, for example. So here's not going to change, but if you put it in FIFO or in AFCO, it's going to need to change dependently on what you're going to purchase to your vendor. So it's important to take that into account. But indeed, you cannot, let's say, directly attach the purchase price of the good that you purchase it to the sales price that you're going to sell it to a customer. Except if you do a bit of customization. So indeed, an OCA module, for example, to do it. You could also, for example, just make it possible here when you then create an order line to select the lot and serial number, from which you can get the cost of it, and from which you can compute the unit price based on an automated action, for example, to make it work. So it's still a customization. It's not so heavy. That's what I mean. But that's something that you could do if you want to compute the unit price, dependently on the lot and serial number that you want to choose. But of course, you need, in that case, to track it by lot and serial number, which is maybe not the case in your use case. Just to maybe show it a bit to make things a bit more clear. What I'm going to do is that I'm going first to check which are the goods that are tracked by lot and serial number. So drawer, for example. Okay, so let's buy a drawer to one of my vendor. Here, like this. Okay, let's buy it at 1, 2, 3. Confirm order, and I get the receipt. Good. Yes, and I get, of course, need to provide the lot and serial number. It makes sense. All right. Now it is done. I can now go back to my inventory app, take a look at my lot and serial number, and the one from my drawer 001. Yes, well, this one. Okay, the cost is still not modified. Value of the lot automatically computed in AFCO. Used to value the product when the purchase cost is not known. Okay, so it's not the case when you purchase it anyway. I mean, so yes, you get it from here, but it's still a bit far. Like you would need at the same moment to bring it back at that place. No. Okay. Yes, Odoo in standard is always getting you back to the cost. It says the standard price of your goods, of your product, and not really to the corresponding purchase order that you get. And it's true that except by doing a customization, I don't see how it could be it could be different. So yeah. So even if I register the purchase price on the purchase tab of the product, I cannot use that information. I need to double key the purchase price and the cost field. But the problem is that if you decide to, let's say, link the cost here to the price that you have there, then it may not make any more sense in terms of stock valuation. If you do your accounting in Odoo, here the costing method is very important because that's how you're going to value, let's say, to make valuation of your stock at the end of the year, or in an automated way if you are in automated accounting. So you cannot really, let's say, change the behavior of the cost field. That's a bit the issue, if you want to do it. That's what I would like to avoid, in that case. So if I want to go for customization, I would not go first by rewriting that field, because I think it's a bit risky afterwards. So I would rather try to do it differently. For example, by linking the purchase price of the good to the lot and sale number that I got, and yes, use it like this. It's complicated, but yes, maybe just try not to double key those two fields, I think. All right, let's go to the next question. But of course, if you want to react again, don't hesitate, because it's an interesting topic, and it's true that it's nice if you can find a solution, at least about how to customize it. So if you have any remark, don't hesitate to share it in the chatter. So Ricard, who comes back about the project app. So in my company, we have set up so that the admin can create projects with full access and see all projects. The user can only see some projects and create new project tasks, but the task stages for some reason are not editable and deletable. Yes, that's a bit. So yeah, my conclusion was the same. I think that the task stages, by default, are part of the configuration tab here. There, in that case, I removed it. I moved it there. So, but a user don't have access to the configuration, so it don't have access to the place where you can modify the task stages. And we saw also that by default, they don't have the access rights to modify it. So you need to do two things. First, you modify the access rights and record rules on the task stages, and then you move the menu to a place where they can modify it. But it's true that the problem that you get in that case is that it still does not modify here the interface about the button that you can play with from here, because in my opinion that's something that comes from the interface settings from the JavaScript probably, and so you cannot change it easily. Okay, same. You could do it with development, that's sure, but you cannot do it probably if you simply modify yes, right. An idea that I have, if you want to make it possible, but it could be, I think it's not a good idea. It's to make everyone part of the project administrator group, but you create a higher group to it, which has, and you just modify the access rights of each of them. But to be honest, that's something that I would not recommend, even if I share it with you. You can try, but you probably have some side effects that are not going to be very interesting, because modifying some existing groups in standards of users, you have so many dependencies in between the apps that you very need to be careful when you do so. So yeah, not so easy. Okay, Hendrik, I see that you are all right. Hendrik, I see that you are reacting to the question. So I agree the stock valuation would be wrecked. The thing is that I need to use the cost field so that I can have a pricing rule based on the cost. I agree. It would all be solved by being able to having a pricing formula. Good, here I need you to click on the plus to see more. Yes. But the problem that we have, Hendrik, and thank you for your message, the problem that we have is that let's say a purchase order line, more especially, is not always linked to a sales order line. The only exception that I know is in the case where you make it as a MTO. Let's try, because that's something that we can. Where I think it's the only case where it would work. Is the idea you sell a product to a customer. and directly you need to purchase it to a vendor, and so you know the purchase price so that you can adapt the sales price. And that's the case of this rule that we have here, that you can indeed use, for example, on the good. Like, okay, let's take this one, for example. So MTO by, was it? No, okay. And I have a vendor, yes. So if I, no, but let's sell a lot that I'm sure that I'm not going to be able to deliver it based on my units that I have from now. And I confirm it, yes. So I get directly then a purchase order linked to it. In that case, the link is done because I can access, of course, each of them. What I'm going to do, because I think here I don't have yet the margin as settings, I will activate it, that I can see the fields that are for now hidden in my database. All right. Yes, I have my margin, and so I should have access here to the cost, purchase price. All right, which is 0, while here it is 287. If I confirm it, is it still 0? Yes. Yes, that is not going to be updated, whatever happens. Here, depending on the cost that I purchase it to my vendor. So, yeah, even in that case, it's not going to be linked directly in between each other. I mean, you could do it because, as the lines are then linked with each other, you could probably with let's say, once again, with some customization, bring it back. But yes, it's not something that you will be able to do. So yes, I mean, your feedback is good. That's probably something that we could also discuss with the R&D. But I think the answer that it would give anyway is, of course, first, not to modify that field, but is the fact that indeed we never know, let's say, the original price of the purchase of a good, except if we identify it with a bill of material, with a serial number. My intuition, because I did not go into maybe enough into the details about that last time. Here, I purchased it to a vendor here, so I have a purchase order linked to it, to that product. Even if the link is not even very strong in between both, but it exists. What I could do is, with a computed field, I could bring back here, in a way, the purchase price of that good based on the purchase order I booked it. Okay, so I get the information there. And then, as I said, in order to explain to Odoo which product I'm going to deliver to my customer, I could add the possibility to add my lot and serial number from here, in which I've added my purchase price, so that with an automation rule, I can compute my unit price. So let's say you skip the price list system, to make it based on the cost, on the purchase price of your good. But you need to have a criteria to identify that product. If you simply give the product without being able to identify it properly, in that case, with a certain serial number, it's not going to work. And the only exception that I thought of is the MTO, so you purchase it directly when you sell it. But even in that case, you still need to do a bit of customization because it will not be done by default. So yeah, so you cannot use the purchase order because it's always after the sales is being done. The thing is that I need to quote my client in order to sell in the first place. And for that, same good here, can you click on plus? Yes, no, I agree. Well, same. The problem here, Hendrik, is that of course, that's even, let's imagine that we discuss with the R&D and they agree with us, still the change will not be applied tomorrow. It will not maybe be applied on the current version of Odoo. So it's still something for the long term. Maybe indeed it could be available for a new version. Let's say today you need to find a solution. Your solution is either to do that job manually, and to adapt the price manually by making this human work of checking and crossing the data. Or you do a bit of customization and you try to make it without impacting too much the standard of Odoo. But yes, I mean, I think we agree on the topic. But here now you need to think about how you want to solve the issue for now. And I mean, you mentioned about the OCS module, so yes, that could be an option. if let's say a temporary solution before it's back and something that is standard in Odoo. But yes, I cannot guarantee it's the case. I don't know much. I don't know enough about those apps and the evolution of those apps in the new versions to see if that's something that's going to be released in the new version or not. All right. Next question from Rajiv. How can I restrict specific post user from modifying completed invoices? All right, let's take a look, because a post user, if you give it like this, is probably a user who can only have access to the post, as I get it. Knowing that indeed when you get here to the post, you can have access actually to the existing order of a customer, but you cannot have access from here to the invoice. But what you could do, for example, is to get back to the orders from the past, the paid one, and there you could indeed print an invoice, or you could indeed maybe make a refund and set quantities on it. But you know, from there, I don't see a way for you to, let's say, be able to, let's say, impact a completed invoice or a posted invoice, as you mentioned, except from here. So if that's the case, here, you know, and your problem is that people can have access to past orders, maybe one that have been invoiced, and still maybe decide to make a refund or to make a return of goods, you know, from the interface. What I would investigate first is to see if, so if I close my register, like this, and if on my furniture shop, I'm going to enable this one and say that I have some basic access rights for Abigail, but I have advanced rights for Antoine, so which is myself. Let's see if Abigail, if I connect with her profile. So for now, I'm just going to connect with mine. Good. So I have access to the orders and so on. If I now connect with Abigail, Abigail has also access to the orders. She has also access to the paid one. And she can do the same. She cannot modify the details, but she can still make a refund, of course. All right. Yes, because here of course, the customer was not known in the past. Well, here, Rajiv, what I just want to highlight is the fact that from the post interface, you don't have much, let's say, options to modify a completed invoice. You can probably create a credit note. You know, if you mention a return of a good in your stock, and so a refund of the good, but that's something that is part of the point of sale. But if you mention the fact that a user can simply get out of the point of sale here and go in the accounting and modify invoices, then it's mostly a question of access rights. So it's maybe because the user that they are using has too many access rights regarding what they should be able to do in Odoo. Also, note that here an invoice, when it is posted, cannot be modified. Okay, so here I cannot modify the values that are inside of it. If I want to do it, I need to reset it to draft, you know, and which is something, of course, that is tracked as well in the chatter and that people cannot do by mistake. Okay, so if they are going to do it, it's because there is a will behind to modify an invoice that has already been completed. You need to know that you can prevent the reset to draft here, or at least keep a track of it, if you enable, for example, in the settings of the journal, I think, for a customer invoice journal, the hashing here of the entries, that you are sure that if someone's going to make it and to modify it, you will keep a track of the changes that were done at that moment, and so on. So I would rather, you know, investigate that question from the access rights point of view. Try to see indeed how to maybe make them better and yes, a bit more adapted to the case. Also, if your question also is that you have maybe only one user, which is the admin, of course, of the point of sale, which is opening the point of sale, and what you are worried about is that maybe someone else can then just, you know, take the tablet or take the computer, log out and modify the accounting, then you need to know that you can first tell your admin user to always let's say, lock the register when he gets out. And if you just decide here to add a password, a PIN code to each of the user, you can make them, able to not come back to the admin profile if they don't know the password. So here, if I go to a profile of an employee, I got the PIN code here that I can use to make sure that people can only connect with their own profile, so that you limit the possibility, of course, for someone who is not an admin user to connect as the admin user and then maybe to leave the point of sale and do some other actions. Yes, except for that, I don't see much other things that you can do in the point of sale. The rest is simply to play with the access rights of the users in the database. All right, next question. Let's say I want to sell wholesaler and retail. Like I have 100 kilograms of rice, but I want to sell it in a package of 1 kilogram, 50 kilograms, and okay. Why in Odoo I can't diff the real weight and shipping weight? Like in marketplace, your rate is differentiated with the shipping weight and volume. So, yes. Because here you have this of package type, each of them is linked to a different weight. So why in Odoo I can't differentiate the real weight and shipping weight? I think you can, but maybe I'm wrong. But here, then on your good, you just simply in the inventory tab define the, let's say, the weight of your good here, of your good only, depending, of course, on the unit of measure that you select here. So, for example, you have 1 unit of 1 kilogram rice. So then you have, let's say, let's make it a bit more visual. So you have a 1 kilogram of rice, let's say. So it's 1 unit, but then in terms of weight, it's 1 kilogram, something like this. Okay. And you can play, of course, with variants and so on to make sure, and kit, for example, to make sure that you can make the right conversion in between your big package of rice and the sub packages that you are selling. But then you could say that this package of rice is going to be packed in a package, let's say, which is, let's say, a medium package. And this package has a certain weight of 0.3, for example, like this. So that the total weight of your good then is probably not simply 1, but 1.3. If we want to see it, we can try to create a sales order with my rice. And in my delivery, no, that's not where I can see it. Where do I see the weight? I'm a bit I don't remember where the weight is computed at the end. Maybe I need to play with the shipping method to see it. Probably. Okay, I'm just going to activate it first. And we'll try again. Total order weight. Yes, for now it's true that it's going to take into account only the weight of the order and not the weight of the package. While here it's taken into account that it's this one, but indeed this one does not contain, well, it contains the weight, but it's not taken into account. Okay, no, it's, you're right then. You're right. So that's a feedback, an interesting feedback, to be honest. That could be something that you could send, to the support of Odoo. So on odoo.com/help. Because I think you're right, and I think it could make sense to take into account let's say the cost of the package as well. So here, you could report a bug, explain exactly what you are experiencing here, on which version as well. But in that case, yes, it would not be so surprising to me that it takes into account, but it should take into account, at that place, the costs, the weight, of the package as well. And it's not the case. So yeah, a good point, I would say. So yes, to be checked. All right, guys, I think it's time to leave each other. It's already 2 hours of sessions. Thank you for your questions. It was really interesting, and I think we had a chance to discuss a lot of different topics. Just maybe before leaving you, a small reminder that next week you will get Antoine Nouvel back to the place, having, let's say, a regular Q&A session as you usually get with him. On my side, thank you very much for your attention, and see you next month for another Odoo Insider session. Bye-bye.